So yeah, I want to make this conversational. I want this to be a lot of life lessons, and I think you do that best through storytelling. So I definitely want to have a discussion more about your story, your journey, and hopefully there's some good key takeaways for everybody in the crowd. So, I was looking into your background. I know that you were an entrepreneur as early as 14, selling 3 companies by 24. So tell us a little bit about what sparked that early entrepreneurship. What were you into? How'd you get it? And that path till 24, and then we'll go on from that age.
Yeah, so I do have an interesting background. I started off as a founder. As Justice has just said, I was 14 years old when I started my first company. But I've been in, so my 3 companies were sound, music, and production, which I ended up selling to a gentleman by the name of Jonas Temple, who actually happens to be my cousin. But he took that business and tooled it into a company called Beatport. If you know what that company is, if you're into music at all, you know what the hell Beatport is. Yeah, and it still exists. I think we still own about 80% of the electronic dance music and DJ booths around the world. And I exited in 2011 with Jonas, and then that turned into a guy by the name of Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre, and Trent Reznor. And Jimmy Iovine was best friends with Steve Jobs. And they were at dinner one night, and apparently, this is all, folklore, but apparently Steve was one of those guys that would disappear for minutes at a time. Like you could be having dinner with him and all of a sudden he'd kind of just disappear, and then you kind of say, well, where'd you go? And apparently they were at dinner and Steve kind of disappeared for a bit, and when he came back, Jimmy's like, well, what's going on? And he's like, I'm really worried. I disrupted music, but I don't think in the near future people are going to pay me $1.99 to buy music, and I really don't think that they're going to pay me to store music. So I got to figure out what to do. Well, Jimmy had just, successfully launched Beats headphones, and Jimmy's a crazy guy. And so he decided, well, shit, I can do that. And Jonas had just sold Beatport, so all of a sudden, knock, knock, knock on the door in Denver, Colorado, there's Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. And before you know it, Jonas became the CEO of Beats Music, and then so I got involved in that. So that was the music and production company. And then I owned a chain of health clubs, and I owned a clothing manufacturer, and I made clothing for activewear. Have you ever heard, you guys are way too young, but have you ever heard of a company called Zubaz? It was like crazy, animal prints, and so that's because you're my age. But yeah, that's what I used to do. So then what ended up happening is I sold all that stuff off, and I was at a meeting of one of the people who were the family that was buying one of my businesses, and the CEO of a company called Merrill Lynch was at this meeting because he had just started this division called Family Office, which you've all heard of today, but and I'm aging myself here, which I absolutely hate doing, but it was the mid-90s, right? And so this guy's name was Dave Kamansky, and so he says, well, what are you going to do? Because I'm telling you right now, that deal's going to get done. You're going to sell your business. And I said, I don't know, I'll start another business. And he says, well, come work for me. And so I started working at Merrill Lynch in the mid-1994, believe it or not. Spent 20 years there, and then in 2016, I got into a really big argument with my then boss, who's the CEO of Bank of America. Because when I joined Merrill, I had an agreement that I could continue to invest in private companies. So I had a piece of the Beats deal. I had a piece of, I was one of the early investors in Uber. B round was a good deal, and a couple of other things. And so when I looked at my public portfolio and I looked at my private portfolio, it was like, the hell are we doing here, right?
Why don't we go private?
The private, in the private market you make multiples. In the public market you make,
Points.
Percentages, right? And so I tried to get Dave or Brian to switch gears so that we could be providing private markets to our investors, and he just didn't want to do it. And so I said, instead of looking the man in the mirror in disgust every morning, I decided to make a change and started Fuel in Miami in 2017 when none of you were here, and none of this was here, by the way.
Was it called Rocker at that point?
Yeah, so that's a really, yeah. So we had an office right down the street. There's a was a company builder called Rocker Labs. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, really good guys. They were Nabil Sharania and Herman. Really, really good guys. And in 2017, they were like the technologists, if you will, of Miami. I mean, there was two guys that were doing something in Miami trying to help founders, and it was these two guys. And so I met with them, and my thesis at the time was, I was coming from the public markets, investment banking and all those kinds of things. And so I was worried that coming into the creative economy, people would look at me like, okay, well, you know how to take a deal to market, you know how to do all these different things, but what the hell do you know about technology? And so I was really worried about that. So I decided to align myself with them. And so yes, the original, I forgot all about that. The original name of my firm in 2017 was called Rocker Fuel, ROKK3R Fuel, which I thought was really cool, but nobody could understand what the hell it meant. It created a real problem. What does 3 mean? I really don't know.
Wow, so you were talking a little bit about Merrill Lynch and you working in the public markets. What would you say were some of your biggest takeaways and some of the lessons? Did this help you become a better private investor? I know you were investing alongside in the private market while you worked at Merrill Lynch and Bank of America, but what are some of the lessons that you learned, and how did that carry over some of the skills?
Yeah, so like I said, I was there 20 years, and fortunately for me, that was during the real heyday of Wall Street. I mean, if you ever watched the movie, what the heck is what Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. That's really what it was like, man. It was crazy, and but fortunately for me, I was kind of being groomed to do a lot of different things. I was when I retired, I was one of 6 that ran the wealth business globally. So my P&L responsibility was the state of Florida, state of Georgia, state of Alabama, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So it was a $2.8 billion P&L, and I had like 8,000 employees that reported into me. So I had, and I don't tell you that to try to impress you, but just to impress upon you the question that was asked of me, which is, I mean, I had some of the greatest people as mentors. I mean, I had a McKinsey consultant that was at my side not 24 hours a day, but from the moment I woke up to the moment I ended up, going to bed at night for 9 years. And that person was there to help me think about strategy, speeches, business plans, all those types of things. I mean, how do you pay for that? You can't. This is kind of cool. I had Ronald Reagan's speech coach for 3 years. That's kind of cool. Doesn't happen every day. And so, I mean, I had incredible development as an executive, as a person that I don't, that kind of stuff just doesn't happen today. So I feel very, very fortunate. And I think when I get into a deal, if I get into a room, I don't really care who it is. And I'm a pretty confident guy as it is, but I know that, nobody's going to outthink me when I get into a room. And if you're a young investment banker, I did that one. I did that one already 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So, I'm really, really fortunate that I grew up the way that I did. I wish I would have left a little earlier, but things happen for a reason.
So I remember you saying that you'd like to get on your horse and ride out 5 to 8 years in the future and come back, and you started the firm about 5 years ago. So you were right on the spot with Miami and what's happening now. So
everybody thought I'd lost my mind finally.
Yeah,
that's the truth. When I started here in 2017, this was a hospitality and real estate play. I mean, you could pull 20 people off of Lincoln Road and say, hey, what's venture capital? Maybe 8 of them could even tell you how to spell it. I mean, it was just crazy. And all my friends in New York that I had finally lost my mind. But because I was here I built a business here, and I built a business in Latin America and the Caribbean, I knew that eventually existing businesses were going to end up having to go to Latin America to expand their marketplace and expand their revenue streams. I knew that because it's a massively populated jurisdiction. And so I knew that was going to come. And then I also felt, if you did the studies, and I did, what's really interesting about Latin America is you either have money or you don't. There's very little in between. But the families that have money, their kids are going to go to college and get educated in the United States. And so a lot of kids came over here and they get educated as engineers, as coders, but they want to go home. And so I also realized that, there's going to be some great companies that are being built. And I think that I felt that technology would eventually be democratized. 2020 proved that, right? And I say this all the time, and this was the thesis in 2017, that eventually, I didn't know when it was going to come. I got lucky and it came in 2020. But eventually, founders would realize, I don't have to move to Silicon Valley to create a company and spend $20,000 a month and live in a closet. I don't have to do that. I can be wherever I am. I can be in Sweden. I can be in Southeast Asia, anywhere in Southeast Asia. I can be in Australia. We just did an investment in an incredible company in Australia. Super interesting place if you've never been there. And, so it's really worked out really well. And I think that now, if you look around, we're in a building where Founders Fund is on the top of this building. Sequoia's here. Andreessen's here. Everybody's here now. In 2017, none of them were here.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. We started hosting events 2016, 2017 because there was no early stage capital. In Florida in general, there's no money. So let's double click on that.
That's why I like you, for the way. Just for the record, if he asks me to go somewhere, I'll do it, right? Just because, this is a guy that is a young guy who's grinding it out. Honestly, is one of the reasons why we have the technology, I think, in the state of Florida. It's young guys like this who are hustling and making it available. I'm one of the lead investors of a company that this guy actually sourced. And one of the companies that he brought into the deal, he didn't bring me into the deal, but I'll say thank you. How's that? I'll say thank you on behalf of Fuel and them.
Thank you, you're the man. So I appreciate that, by the way. It means a lot. So let's kind of zoom out, right? Miami bubbling up. Now things are kind of in this weird cool down period, which I personally think is a great time to be investing. So what do you think about the macroeconomics right now? People are kind of retracting dollars. There's some dry powder on the sidelines. Are you going upstream to earlier stage stuff? Are you staying kind of later stage? Let's talk about kind of what you think about kind of the macroeconomics.
So maybe we start with the macroeconomic, our opinion on the macroeconomic conditions at the moment, and then we can maybe go down into stages and stuff like that. But, I've been at this for 30 years, so I've seen bull markets, I've seen bear markets. I knew that there was going to be a bear market coming. You never know when. But, we had a good run. It was a 15-year bull run.
Crazy run.
And this is going to sound bananas, especially coming from me. But I actually think it was the greatest thing that ever happened to investors and to founders. And the reason that I say that is because when you're in a bull market like that, and
it's not reality.
It's not reality, and founders start getting privileged as well. When capital is abundant, you're not really concerned about burning through your capital. There's no big deal. We'll just go get more of it, which is one of the reasons I don't invest in the West Coast, right? Because it's really privileged over there.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, right, there might be 24 really big VC firms. They have billions of dollars. They have to deploy it. So if you're in Silicon Valley and you have a fairly good, go-to-market strategy, you have a good tech stack, there's a really high probability you're going to get some money. And one of the things that my partner and I, we literally bet on this. This is not a joke. When we go into a company on the West Coast, we have a bet on when you walk in the door, where's the pool tables and the ping pong tables? Is it on the left side or the right side? But if you go into a portfolio company in Miami or in Stockholm, Sweden, or in London, or in Sydney, or wherever it is,
there's no ping pong table, huh?
There's no ping pong tables and pool tables. And the reason why is because capital's not as abundant outside of the West Coast of the United States. If you're a founder in this room, you have to figure out how to make a very small amount of money go a really long ways. And what that's doing for you, whether you know it or not, it's making you a better business person. And I want to invest in you 9 times out of 10 before I invest in someone where it's privileged, and when a tough market comes, they don't know what the hell to do. A tough market comes, and I sit down with my founders and I say, hey, we got to take $3 million out of your burn rate. And they just look at me and they say, okay, well, we've been there before, no big deal, let's do it. Try that with a West Coast. They're like, what are you talking about, right? So macroeconomics. God, I hope 200. I pray to God 24 is much better than it has been, because it's really been hell. Really been hell. I mean, like I said, I've been at this for 30 years. This is the worst I've ever experienced, and I was at the table of the financial, crisis in 2009. But that was like a Band-Aid. It got ripped off, and all of a sudden, before you knew it, we had a bull market. This thing's been dragging out for 24 months, and it's had a negative effect on investors from investor psychology. And most investors will hunker down when things get tough. It's the most fascinating thing in the world, but investors don't really like to buy things on sale. They only want to buy things when it's really expensive and everybody else is buying it. And
That's so true.
The truth of the matter is, this is the most incredible time to be investing in technology. Because people like me, we can negotiate really good deals right now. I'm not saying trying to take advantage of a founder, because we don't do that. But you can still get a really good deal. And you're not going to get that deal if everything works out the way I think it's going to over the next 24 months. Everything is going to, supply and demand is going to start to come back up again. There's a lot of dry capital right now that's waiting to be deployed. And it's starting to come back into the market. You see it. And so it'll all be gone. But yeah, I hope that the Fed starts to maybe come down in 24, the third quarter, fourth quarter. I'm not convinced about that. The United States has a ton of debt. Most countries around the world have a ton of debt. That scares me. So, I hope that it is. I hope that we have a soft landing, but I think it's really, really fragile right now. I think that any little thing could move to jump us into a recession that's not good for any of us. So I think it's just going to be a super interesting year, and I think we all have to really keep our eyes on what's going on. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep your head down. You got to work your ass off. Stick to your foundation of your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, the storm will pass. And right now, what we all have to do, everybody in this room, we just have to get through the storm. You have to survive. You just have to be alive at the end of the storm. And typically, if you can pull that off, it's all downhill from there. I mean, you're really if you go back to the financial crisis and look at the companies that were started during the financial crisis in 2008.
Uber, Airbnb.
It's incredible, iconic companies. And they didn't give up, right? They didn't give up, and that's where they are. So that's how I feel about the macro.
Perfect. So you've so far raised $700 million. Somebody who's just starting a fund, it's an insane amount to somebody like me. I know you're like, these guys upstairs are way bigger, but what's your strategy around that as far as family offices? Are you giving them ability for direct investments into the portfolio companies? What's your secret sauce on fundraising personally for your own fund?
Yeah, so I was speaking basically the same thing we're doing right now a couple of days ago at an M&A conference on Brickell. And I have to be really careful, but I have some friends in the Valley who are very, very connected to what's going on in AI, quantum computing, and so when you ask me what I'm doing to fundraise, what I'm trying to really do is educate people. Because I really believe that 90% of the people just you wake up every day, you do the exact same thing you did yesterday in getting ready. I don't know what that is, but I guarantee it's the same damn thing. You get up, you have a cup of coffee, then you do whatever, brush your teeth, whatever. But it's the same routine. And then you get dressed and you go do whatever it is you do all day long, and then, maybe you go to the gym. And before you know it, you're going to bed, and next morning it's rinse and repeat. And we just do that year after year after year after year after year. And I don't think that the human condition is good at just stopping for a little bit and really looking around at what the hell is going on. And I think that 90% of the people right now have no clue what the hell is going on right now, right? You're Moore's Law, right? Every 2 years, we double the amount of chips that we can put on a chip, we double the amount of transistors that we can put on a chip, which allows us to, every 2 years, double our processing power. So I don't know when you were born, but like if you, and I know you're not, so, but really modern day computing really kicked in like mid 80s. So if you kind of think about how the world has progressed since the mid 80s to today, right? I mean, the iPhone that you have in your pocket came out in 2007. 2007, and just think about all the companies that used to be in existence before that damn thing came out. Used to be something called a phone book, right? Used to be things that you would go to a gas station and they were called maps. You know, it's changed everything that we do.
Sure.
I haven't been to a grocery store in 8 years. I mean, who the hell would go to a grocery store? I mean, maybe you do, but I don't understand why you would. So it's like everything has changed, right? Music. I mean, when I was growing up, you had to pay, you know, $16, $17, $18 for a whole album. You only listened to one song. I mean, everything has changed. But here's what's going on right now. If, you know, IBM last week announced some major progression in quantum computing. And I don't know if you know anything about this space, but you know, you talk about AI, and you were telling me about it earlier. AI cannot operate on today's computing systems. So there's a lot of new technology, mainly quantum computing, but basically, here's the best way to think about quantum computing. It doesn't use a transistor, right? Transistor is either on or off.
Zero or one.
It's on or off, and so I can only, like if you think about a maze, right? What a computer today will do is it'll go through and it'll say, oh, I can't get through the maze on this one, so it'll come back out, and it'll keep going until it finally finds the route to get to the end. But quantum computing takes that maze and it looks at every angle and every element of that maze at the exact same time, and it's done. So if you take all of the supercomputers in the United States right now, a billion of them, and you connect them together, and you cannot get the same processing power as one quantum computer. So just think about that for a second. A quantum computer can solve problems in 1 minute that would take today's supercomputers 1 million years to do, if it could ever even do it. So now go back to what I was talking about before, from the mid-'80s to today, and the transition and what has happened to our society. That's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. 45 years of progression will happen in 3 to 5 years. In 3 to 5 years, you will not be able to recognize anything around you. That's what's happening, and that's what's coming. And if you don't know that, shame on you. And so what I spend a lot of time with family offices and institutions is stop being an ant and waking up every day and just doing whatever it is that you do. You've got to stop and understand shit's about to really get weird.
Absolutely.
And if you're not prepared for it, then you're in trouble. And oh, by the way, if you're an investor, just go back and think about it. If you were to invest in Google and Amazon and all those companies, knowing what you know today, you know, Amazon went public in 1997. Imagine if you were lucky enough to invest in it in 1997. This is the greatest time
Right.
in 4.5 billion years for us to be alive. We are about to be able to put people on Mars. You know, Elon Musk is doing things that no other human, I'm not even convinced the guy's a human being. So
Me neither.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I do. I spend a lot of time talking with people about, you know, this bullshit, stocks, bonds, and cash. Are you kidding me right now?
Right. Yeah.
It's just like, I come from that world, so I can say that. It is the dumbest thing. I mean, you look at interest, you look at where inflation is, but where's real inflation? You know, this is my favorite thing when someone comes to me and says, well, I can get a 6-month treasury bill for 5% now. Who gives a shit? You know, you take out inflation, what you got left? You're losing money.
Yeah. Negative 2%.
So with family offices, this is my favorite thing. This is what I say, okay, do you love your grandparent or your grandkids? Well, of course I do. Well, then what the hell are you doing buying, you know, 75% of your net worth in public equities and 25% in fixed income, because your grandkids are going to be broke. They're not going to have any money because the next generation is going to burn through everything that you leave them, and there's not going to be anything left, and that's the truth.
Yeah, dude.
So you better write me a check or you're going to be in trouble, and that's basically how I do it.
You're the man. That was great. That was a great conversation. I have so many things to say about that. Also about Tesla, SpaceX. They just announced that they're going to start to build a gigafactory for the Starship, and they want to be able to produce one a day. That's crazy for $10 million a piece. We actually got some more time. You were going to say something about that? Perfect.
No, I just think that Elon is just, he's just unbelievable. I just read 2 days ago, he's raising, I bet one of my friends, that he's raising $1 billion and wanted to do it in 24 hours. Can you imagine?
That's crazy.
Can you imagine that? You and I raising $1 billion in 24 hours. Jesus, I would give almost anything to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree though. If you're not investing in AI, I mean, you're missing out on the internet, right? It's like you said, Google. So, we talked about a lot of wins, the market, a lot of stories. Jeff always wins, right? I want to see what's one time that you lost, and maybe you thought it was like a near-death experience. Like, damn, right now things are harder than they've ever been. I don't know what I'm going to do next. What was that moment? What did you learn? What were you thinking? Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I mean, we invest in a lot of companies. They all don't work out. Is that what you mean? Like, do I have
personally?
Yeah,
professionally?
Listen, I don't think you can be around as long as I've been. Here's what I'll tell you. One of my old bosses, a guy by the name of Brian Seppi, a very legendary Wall Street guy, he once said to me, and this, I don't know if this applies to women. I don't know. So just take that the right way as a disclaimer. But what he said to me is, every man eventually will be brought to his knees. It'll either happen early in their life, mid part of their life, or later in their life. I've been brought to my knees more than once, and I think it's unfair. I think it should only be once, but I've been brought to my knees a couple of times, and I'll tell you, I've been working for a really long time, like we just established. I started my first company when I was 14, so I'm not one of these guys that I didn't have that college experience where everybody has fun. I didn't go to proms. I didn't do those normal things. I was also, an athlete when I was younger, so my dad didn't let me really do a whole lot of things. All I really know how to do is work. So when something doesn't work out for me, I go to what I know, and that's just work. I'm not really good at much of anything else. I think I'm a shit son, right? I think I'm a good friend. I hope I'm a good dad, but man, I can work, and that's what I fall back to.
You're amazing. Well, let's take some questions from the audience. So raise your hand if you have a question. First come, first serve.
This is the interactive part.
Can I ask about landscaping and how, thank you, just how you identify, like you were saying, Justin's helped you source a couple companies, but from finding LPs to understanding your environment, obviously a lot in Miami's changed, but maybe talk about when you first started opening your fund here, how did you identify who you need to talk to? I think that can be really hard when you're trying to build an ecosystem and get momentum.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Natalie. Here's the scary thing, okay? And raise your hand if you're not living in Miami or you're not living here. Okay, so there's a few people not living here, but most of us, well, there's a couple of my friends from Michigan, just because it's December, right? Everybody hates Florida until December rolls around. $700 million we've deployed. 55% of that is offshore. Maybe 10 million of it is from Miami. And that scares the shit out of me. And everywhere I go, I say what I'm about to say. We have a lot of people like you, super well educated, domain expertise in biotech, you and your partner, and you're doing incredible things and increasing the awareness around that space. But if you think about what made Silicon Valley what it is the community got involved, right? So the community's like, okay, well, I don't know how to invest in these tech companies. Looks really hard. It is really hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And so I'm going to take $1 million and I'm going to give it to him. And then I'm going to let him.
You guys all heard that, right?
Yeah.
He's giving me $1 million.
And then he's going to source some great founders that are leveraging technology to disrupt verticals that have been around for 40, 50, 60 years. That's the whole idea. But I'm going to let him do all the heavy lifting, let him do all the work and making sure that he curates it and gets it to market and monetizes it. And then he has success, and me as an investor, I get money back, and I just keep pouring it in, and you have this ecosystem. I keep saying this, and I've said it to Francis Suarez, I've said it to everybody that cares to listen. If we don't get the community involved in what we're doing, eventually you will leave.
Leave, absolutely.
And you'll leave because there's no fuel for your company, and all you have is a really cool looking garage ornament, right? Imagine having a Ferrari that you have no gas to get it out of the garage. What the hell do you have it for? And that's what scares the hell out of me. And so and I'm trying really hard to figure out how to do that, but we can't have people coming to Miami, taking up all the boat slips, taking up all the apartments so that our founders can't even afford to live in downtown Miami anymore. They have to take a train from Fort Lauderdale to get to work. We take up all the reservations at our restaurants, take up all the beach space. That's not cool. If you're going to come here and you're going to say you're a part of the 305, then God damn it, you got to get involved in this community. And if you are a person of wealth, you got to pay it forward. And I'm not saying do stupid stuff. I'm saying search out some guys like him, some guys like me, 305 Ventures. There's a bunch of us who started out here long before all these guys from, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of them, and I think it's wonderful, but I haven't seen their name on a cap table yet. And that pisses me off. Now, we have a company, you and I, that's finally got enough attention that one of them is looking at it, and I hope that they do, because that begins, and that's hard for me because I'm the lead investor of that company. So, and I'm, I don't like being second to anybody. But for this, it's the right thing for the community, it's the right thing for this founder, it's the right thing for this company, and I hope it works, because it'll be the very first time I've ever seen anybody that didn't start out here,
right, that
actually deployed some money in one of our companies. So I don't really know if I answered your question very well, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And I had to say that before I left, because it's my thing, that's what I say.
Dude, you're the man. So let's double click on this $1 million that you're going to give to me now.
Yeah.
You have a question right there?
Can you comment on how all this new technology, AI, VR, et cetera, how will it impact how we collaborate and build relationships?
Yeah, see, that's the scary part. I build relationships. Obviously, I do like to get on my horse and ride out into the future, but I don't have a crystal ball. I think that, I personally think in 5 years, there's not a person in this room that's going to have to go to work. We're not, when you have something that is, you take this, let's just say that Elon Musk is the smartest guy on the planet. We're building computers now that are 100 times smarter than he is. And those computers are going to be able to almost do anything that we need to have done. So that scares me to death, right? Because to me, the biggest challenge that all of us are going to have 5 years from now is trying to figure out how to take care of the human condition. If you don't have a reason to get up in the morning and go do something and get stressed out and exercise your mind and your body, you start to decay. It's like muscle. If you don't work out, it can't grow. And it's no different than your mind or anything else. So that worries me. And you just saw this 2 weeks ago. I mean, the CEO of a very prominent AI, I don't want to get into the names of things, but you know who I'm talking about. Why was he fired? I've got a buddy who should know the answer to that, and he doesn't know. So to me, one of two things has happened. Either they are now starting to unleash things like the digital god, and if that happens, that's really super scary to me. I can't stress enough how extreme I think things are about to get. But again, it's going to depend on if that starts getting reeled back into the box, which I hope it does, but I'm not sure anymore. So it's going to, I really don't know how to answer that question. And I apologize for that. 'Cause I think about it every night, and I'm just struggling. And listen, I read like a madman. I mean, I can't go to bed unless I read. My biggest fear is I'm getting stupid tomorrow, and I can't stand that. So, but like the quantum computing is so deep. It's so hard to really understand, and I'm trying to get my arms around that. And I don't know that I ever will. So I can't even answer a question like that.
I'm gonna have my digital avatar hang out with your digital avatar, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, and that's, listen, I'm a big investor in a VR game. I mean, we've got kids that are inside of our virtual reality world for 6 hours a day. I mean, what the hell? 6 hours a day, you're not even in reality. I mean, that's what's going on right now.
Scary.
Yeah, you talked about how a big part of your guys' thesis is not investing in the West Coast. And part of that is because people don't need to go to Silicon Valley anymore to build a company. And part of that is being spoiled with capital, for lack of a better explanation.
And I can't compete. And that's me pointing inward.
Okay.
I mean, if Founders Fund is from Silicon Valley, and they've got, what, $5 billion? Right. I told you, I only have 700. So how the hell do I compete with that guy? So I got to go where I can try to compete and try to find, someone in this room who's got an incredible, intellectual firepower, understands what it is they're doing, has a great idea, has an incredible tech stack, and try to bring value to that person. Because they're not there. Do you see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to add that. It's not just them, it's just I can't compete with them.
Yeah. Well, that might answer my question. My question was going to be, is there anything else to that thesis? Like why actively, is it just that you don't need to be there and you can't compete, or is it active trying to distance from something in that culture?
It's everything that I said, but I will tell you, I have 2 companies that did not start in Silicon Valley, but for whatever reason felt that they had to go. And it's just a nightmare. I mean, the labor laws in California, the taxes in California, I just don't get it. I mean, if you're a founder and I come in and say we need to lower burn, you can't even fire anybody. I mean, it's crazy. So there's so many reasons why I don't like it over there. And I don't need to go there. Just don't. There's lots of talent all over the world, and we go all over the world. I mean, I just got back from a trip. I was gone for a month and a half. Everywhere. You name it, I was there.
Well, thank you.
Yes, Jeff, good afternoon. My name is Omar Blandon. I am with Nucleate. I have a question for you. So how a young founder or somebody that has a very promising technology or something that they can think that they can take out to market can reach out to somebody like you? How this a student or somebody that is almost getting ready to graduate can have access to Jeff and people from your venture capital fund?
Yeah, I get this question asked a lot, and you can imagine. This is going to sound crazy to you, but I think we get on average 1,000. We look at about 1,000 companies on an annual basis. Now, not all. I don't look at all those. Right? We have an algorithm that weeds out a lot of things like biotech. This is just not what we do, so that gets weeded out. But how do you? So where's Temple at? Where's he at? He went to the bathroom. Wow, that's bad timing. Well, when he comes back, I'll introduce you to Temple. He's actually the guy you want to talk to. So he's one of our lead analysts, and he's the guy that you want to get in touch with. And here's what I'll tell you. I don't think you ever want to do something on a cold basis. You want to find, it's the 6 degrees of separation. It's a really powerful thing. There's only 6 people in the world that separate you from whoever it is that you want to talk to, right? Like this young lady in the second row. She has she has this I don't know how you would call it, but she has a very high opinion of a very good friend of mine who's a world famous artist. And she saw last year that I was holding an event during Art Basel on my boat with him. And so she reached out to someone who reached out to someone and got in touch with me and said, you know, I've idolized this person my entire life and I have to meet them. They're in Miami. And she was on my boat. And she sat and she got her picture taken with Tony Kelly. And that's being a smart grinder, you know, and that's the 6 degrees of separation. I'd never met her before. I had no idea who she was. But that story meant something to me, right? And because of that, I wanted to make that come true for her. And it was great. And I'm so glad that we met, right? So I think you got to find someone who knows someone who's a friend of mine or a friend of Temple's, because then you're not going to just get you're not going to have someone just say, well, send me your deck. You're actually going to get invited to the office. And that's how that works. Life is about relationships, and you've got to figure that out, and you've got to work really hard to build a network and have friends that are in the community and are connected. And that's how it works. Like this guy right here, I don't care who's in the room. He tells me that I should meet with you, I'm going to meet with you because I trust him and he's a friend of mine and I have a lot of respect for him. And that's how it will work.
This is a litmus test. $10 million is locally invested. How much money you receive via Bitcoin?
Via Bitcoin? Zero. Yeah, zero. And listen, the whole conversation about cryptocurrency and those types of things, I have no problem with any of it. I come from traditional finance, and I've just never been able to listen, I have tremendous respect for it because I'm a creator. I invest in the creative world. I want all of that to be going on. I just can't figure it out and don't know shit about it. So there's a lot of other smart people in the world that do. So let them do what they do best, right? I'll invest in fintech. I know it's not as cool, but that's what I'll do. But zero, none. So listen, I'm an expert witness for the SEC. I'm an expert witness for FINRA. I'm not going to mess with. Why would I lose this is all I know how to do. I'm not going to mess around taking money from offshore in Bitcoin. I mean, you might as well just.
So let me rephrase that question. How many of your foreign investors say, do you accept Bitcoin? When you say that? I agree. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've never had. It's a really interesting question, but I've never had anybody
Even approach you.
even approach me to say, do you accept Bitcoin? Never. But you also got to remember, I'm dealing with a lot of patriarchs and matriarchs of families that maybe don't even know what Bitcoin is. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, that's Temple. If anybody wants to.
Yeah.
meet him.
So Temple, I was looking for you earlier. The question was, who do you reach out to if you want to get Fuel's attention? And I said, so this is the guy you want to get to know right here. He's our lead analyst.
Perfect. Well, we're getting the cue to wrap up. Really appreciate your time. You are the absolute man. Thank you so much. I love you. Give it up for Jeff. Thank you. Oh, they want a picture.
Let's give a resounding applause for the guests on our next session, and welcome on stage our moderator, Pablo Casamilos.